Hello, and welcome to BIA's Leading Local Insights podcast, your go-to spot for staying ahead in the dynamic local advertising marketplace. You'll hear BIA's top experts and their distinguished guests break down the trends, technologies, and innovations reshaping local media. Plus, you'll frequently get highlights from BIA's U.S. local advertising forecast. Thanks for tuning in. Let's dive in.
Welcome to the Leading Local Insights podcast from BIA Advisory Services. I'm Rick Ducey, Managing Director here at BIA, and I'm excited to have you join us today. We have a fantastic discussion lined up with our special guest, Jay Loeffler, the Chief Sales Officer at Valpak. We're going to dig into some of the latest advancements in advertising, evaluation, and selection with him, a topic that's definitely on the top of mind these days. Also joining us is Senan Mele, BIA's VP of Forecasting and Data Analysis. Senan will share his insights on the current state of the local advertising marketplace and our forecasts as we edge towards 2026, providing great context for the innovative strategies that Jay, you'll be discussing with us. In our last chat in May with Jay and Valpak, we explored how factors like unexpected tariff hikes and high interest rates were impacting the advertising landscape. Now, with 2025 almost over for us, we're eager to hear Jay's thoughts on the shifts in advertising data, spending, and strategies amidst these constant economic changes that we're all dealing with. So the advertising landscape, data, spending, strategies evolving in response to all these things, that's what we're going to be talking about. So, Jay, let's just jump right in. It's great to have you back. As I've discussed, uncertainty can lead to opportunities, especially in the media world driven by data, which I know is one of your favorite themes. One opportunity emerging is that brands are increasingly seeking a unified source of intelligence to guide their spending decisions. What trends have you observed this year, and how do you see this evolving?
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rick. Pleasure to be back here. Thanks for having me. So I think, one thing that we're noticing is data is starting to become the central intelligence hub for all media spend and optimization. And the partners who could use data to help advertisers make informed decisions, pivot quickly, measure efficacy, are the ones that are winning more advertising spend. So we have a great purview because we have about 65,000 advertisers at Valpak Clip, from national retail chains all the way down to the local pizza shop. And what we're seeing is that once was like a specialized, fragmented media landscape is starting to consolidate down a bit. And data has really become the central point of that. And to be clear, data is not just buying lists. It's synthesizing the insights from existing customer records, sales data, lifestyle and life stage influence, behavioral triggers, creative impact, dynamic call to actions, offers. There's a lot that goes into it. It's an area that Valpak and Clip have been investing very heavily in for the past decade. And we use our large data models and billions of customer demographics, insights, and touch points to really measure the impact for all of our partners, large and small. I like to say we're kind of democratizing data and insights for all of our partners. Again, whether you're a local pizza shop to a sophisticated national retail chain.
And just, we'll guess this, I think, but I'm just kind of curious. So like that local pizza shop, what you're saying is fabulous, all this data. It sounds sophisticated, complicated, very powerful. But a pizza shop, how is a pizza shop going to take advantage of this?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what we try and do is scale confidence. And in order for us to be effective, we need to really take all of the data and insights we have collectively between Valpak and Clip. It's over 100 years of offer insights, data, consumer insights, now adding what we call My Blue Insights in our data stack, billions of different touch points on every household. So we know if you have a gravel driveway versus a paved driveway, credit score modeling. So what we do is, when advertisers are smaller and not as sophisticated, meaning they don't have these sophisticated CRM systems, they don't have data lakes, we actually could take our aggregated data and insights and build out custom opportunities to go with them and say, we already have worked with thousands of advertisers in your category and know to optimize performance, you should be mailing these zones, leveraging this digital product, using this type of offer, and this type of call to action. So we're taking our aggregate insights and packaging it up so even the smallest of advertisers are getting large data insights to help make them really appealing from their first mailing or first digital experience with us, all the way through the lifetime of working with us and continuing to evolve those insights.
So that is really fantastic. I mean, a small pizza operator can operate with the power of a Fortune 500 company with the kind of data intelligence that you're talking about. And it's working because I want a pizza now. So now let's bring you in. Building on Jay's comments, what does BIA see in terms of forecasting? What are the major trends shaping advertiser spending? And could you give, it's tough the way things move, but I'll say an honest assessment or the best assessment you can of the state of linear TV for 2026?
Yes, Rick, absolutely. So first of all, looking at the macro picture, what BIA noticed is that 2025 was defined by elevated interest rate, tight credit, and tariff uncertainties. So all of this influenced the advertising landscape this year, making 2025 a sort of reset year. Now, BIA expect 2026 to be a competitive year, especially because we know that tariffs are going to be settled one way or another. So if we change the angle a bit and look at things from a channel perspective, what we've noticed is that connected TV and digital out of home have been significantly growing over the past few years, and this trend is expected to continue in the future. So marketers are appreciating the fact that they can measure foot traffic and lead generation through these channels. That being said, it is important to point out that linear TV will remain important and crucial, especially for broad reach and for building trust, because it's been a cost-efficient way to reach large audiences using impactful video ads. So while it's true that the growth has been somewhat slow and sometimes slightly negative for TV, it's still a go-to platform to reach large audiences with video ads. Now, I want to change the angle a bit and look at budget behavior. Something else we've noticed is that small and medium-sized business are moving away from front-loading their budget, which is typically the way that traditional media, including broadcast TVs, but instead they are leaning towards backloading budget into channels that provide near real-time proof of performance. So it's a good idea for advertisers to keep somewhere between 5 to 10% of a budget flexible, so that when opportunities arise where CPM is kind of lower, advertisers can capitalize on those. So one last thing I want to say before I end my points here is that advertisers, especially small to medium-sized businesses, are really focused on efficiency and accountability. So multi-channel planning and activation is happening. It's something that has been gaining ground in recent years, and digital advertising has been gaining traction as well, especially because of its ability to target specific audiences and for the way it can deliver performance metric in near real time. So that has led to a bit of a shift of ad spend away from traditional media. But again, those media still play a significant role in the advertising landscape. So that's what the different trends that BI has been noticing in recent years and what is expected for 2026.
No, that's great. Obviously, a lot to think about there. And Jay, definitely want to get your perspective on this. So one of the things about front loading, back loading, I guess, with traditional media, it has been the case where you pay for a campaign, plan and pay for a campaign months in advance. With digital, you can be much more flexible, closer to, if there's a sale coming up, you can have the ad campaign bought and activated, weeks or even days beforehand. You don't have to plan it out months in advance to get the inventory. That's one kind of thing. But there's some operation elements like programmatic. And if you're doing multi-platform advertising, to try to synchronize that among all the different providers that are helping you with your marketing activations. So, programmatic makes a difference. And then I know we've been talking about this notion of single point of contact. If you have a campaign, and most of these are multi-platform campaigns, that pizza operator, or even, a tier 2 regional auto buy, there's a lot of moving elements, and that's not their job. They're trying to sell cars or pizzas. But you've been working with solutions to try to integrate that and automate it, so it's a lot more powerful. And then with digital media, you can track performance and optimization and make allocation changes among the different media channels, right up to the day of performance that you're looking to drive the outcome for.
Yeah, so I'd love to kind of just capitalize on something Senan said that I think is really interesting relating to CPMs. So talking about that, because a trend that we're seeing is for years, the media industry, and traditionally it's been more traditional media, has relied on CPM, or cost per thousand, with an emphasis to always negotiate the lowest CPM. And while cost is certainly a factor in the equation when you're measuring things like ROAS or cost per lead, the conversation is shifting more towards what is an effective CPM, meaning how much waste am I willing to essentially assume to achieve the lowest cost. And I'll give you an example. Valpak and Clip, we've advanced pretty heavily into the digital space, which is to answer the second part of your question there, with display, CTV in a pretty meaningful way, with a really strong, unique selling proposition. So I'll give you an example. There's a garage door company in the Midwest that was using a company that specialized in mobile and desktop display. When we evaluated the campaign and the zip codes being targeted, we realized really quickly that the CPM was low, but they were only targeting 45 to 50% of the impressions to households that could even act on their value proposition. The rest were apartments, trailers. So a $4 CPM with 50% waste very quickly became an $8 effective CPM.
Yeah.
So we were able to use our data to target only single-family dwelling units with garage doors and serve targeted impressions to 100% of those households that can engage with the value proposition by IP targeting those devices in those households. The result was a 7x engagement rate over the competition in a head-to-head test. So I think that's where people are moving to now, which is not just what is the lowest cost, but what am I getting for that cost and what am I willing to accept in order to really meet the metrics that are most important. So again, data is really driving the marketing conversation. It's making media smarter. And in this case, it's the right household and the corresponding devices that really eliminated the waste and ended up driving a more favorable result. So I think that's one thing that's really starting to permeate across all channels. It's not just digital or traditional. It's really all channels are looking at the way that they measure the impressions that they're giving to an advertiser, and then what is the meaning of those impressions on the back end.
Yeah, that concept of effective CPM is so critical, but it's a bit surprising that sometimes people struggle with it. They're so used to thinking about CPM, but the wastage factor. And then I guess just briefly, the waste, we say waste, but the targeting does try to get those 50% of the people that could use a driveway, I guess. But there may be word of mouth or something. You may hit somebody who doesn't need a driveway, but they know, my friend needs one, so I'm going to pass this along. So I suppose that waste isn't necessarily all waste, but still, you want to hit your target segment, and you can do it much more efficiently with the methods you're talking about, and it's great to have those available. So I'm considering all of this. Are you seeing similar behaviors in the broader marketplace?
Yes, in a lot of ways, yes. And I actually really agree with Jay's point on the power of looking at CPM in a way that prevents waste, because another way we think about it is like effectiveness versus efficiency. Because if we're using CPM as a measure in general, yes, we can be effective in reaching a lot of people, but like Jay said, it's a lot of it could be waste, but using some of the approaches that he just explained and went over, the advertising campaign can be much more efficient and targeted and can generate more return on ad spend um, for um, for clients. But one other point I want to mention here, which is something else we are observing in the marketplace, is that small and medium-sized business are indeed chasing efficiency and accountability across various channels. And we've touched upon that a bit earlier. That's what's leading to the multi-channel planning and activation strategies, as well as um, multi-channel planning and activation strategies. Anyways, the other piece here is that we are facing challenges with inconsistent measurement um, across, actually, let me start over. So something we are noticing in the broader marketplace is that advertisers are facing challenges with inconsistent measurement quality, both within and across media channels, which can hinder growth. So we've mentioned this earlier, digital is gaining traction primarily due to its better targeting and performance metrics, and that's causing a shift of ad spend away from traditional media. So while we see a decline in digital display CPMs, and Jay talked about this earlier, the downside of that can lead to issues like oversaturations or lower engagement levels. So what's important here is that creative quality and local relevance are becoming the real differentiators these days. So AI can help and plays a big role nowadays in production and buying, but let's not forget it's the human strategy that truly matters here. Finally, there are ways to bridge some of the measurement gap that are observed in the market. And those initiatives involve things like media mix modeling with monthly inputs from CRMs and point of sales, so that non-digital effort can get credited appropriately, something that does not happen often enough based on what we've observed. And that's also one of the causes of um, advertising spend moving away from traditional media. The last point I would like to make here is that within the same industries and categories, there can be different campaign results depending on the DMAs or market that we are looking at. So local strategy is also very important here.
And that's the thing between national campaigns and local campaigns, trying to infuse localness, relevance into the campaign, because we know that drives lift from a lot of different kinds of research studies we've seen. And Jay, so you've spoken to the power of data and integrating across platforms, but things like creative quality and local relevance feel more, I don't know, emotional, less quantitative. How is Valpak and Valpak Clip approaching that balance through data?
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting question, and it's one that I like to say that we specialize in, because at its inception, I mean, Valpak was a franchised organization for many years and had 150 local franchisees across, 160, 170 markets across the US that literally were so ingrained in the local communities that they would go to the softball games of their clients and go to the Chamber of Commerce events. So we built Valpak from its core to really be a hyper local vehicle that aggregated up to a national media company. So a lot of what we have, if you think about seasonality, you think about geography, you think about just different things that can impact the same business just at different times of year. You want to promote a heating offer in the Northeast, but you probably don't need that in Florida. So how do we give the local insights to our partners to have a national campaign that acts local? And, one of the things that we're seeing is I don't think the shift is as black and white as people are moving away from traditional and towards digital. I think it's more a shift towards transparency, performance, and accountability, and away from the low cost spray and pray. So digital, in full transparency, has been much more of a leader of that space in recent years, but traditional media is catching up. And, some of the things that we do for our clients to just, round out the question you asked, not only the years of local data and insights and offers and understanding local markets, but we're ingesting a ton of client data. We're getting sales data, we're getting customer records, we're fully SOC 2 compliant. We've built a great data business, but we are into recommending what to do as much what not to do. So we will take, one thing we found is the best predictor of future sales is, are there current sales in that area? So by being able to overlay that and build that as part of a composite index, we will say, look, you're mailing this area, and even though it modeled to look good, the sales aren't coming, or you don't have enough people in your call center to convert the leads. So let's cut that circulation out. Let's focus it in an area that might make more sense. So we're making local decisions for our advertising partners in national campaigns to make sure they're getting the optimized results, the best insights, and the best offer intelligence to activate based on geography, seasonality, and then all things that are important to their business. Do they have enough staffing? Could the call center volume be handled?
Right.
All of that is taken into consideration when we build these campaigns for our partners.
That's great. Okay, so Jay and Senan, we've covered a lot so far. Let me take a shot at summarizing some of the key themes. The economy is challenging, but data-driven marketers thrive. And Jay, I think you provide a lot of examples of how that provides intelligence, insights, actionability, and the ability to optimize and manage campaigns to successful conclusions. A lot of that's data-driven, and some of this, even if we're looking at local relevance and creative, we can have some measures of what quality means and drive towards that using the data and the different platforms we're talking about. The cross-media integration and simplification, single point of contact. I mean, the small pizza owner has essentially the same power that a Fortune 50, CMO has, with all the back-end data and all the services that you provide. So that is terrific for that small business and their clients, because, they know how to find the pizza that they love now. And quality over quantity in media and message, really concepts we're talking about, CPM versus effective CPM. And Stan, you were touching on the efficiency of the buy as well. And that does draw back to that single point of contact. I mean, if you're trying to do cross-platform and there's so many different types of data, having one kind of single source of truth and execution, planning and execution, activation can make a huge difference. And then I think I'll borrow from you mostly, Jay, Richmond's three truths: data beats the rate. Don't just look at the CPM, understand what that means, especially from an effective CPM perspective. And all your experience with the markets and local performance that you were talking about, Jay, local beats generic. I mean, so you can have a national campaign that's maybe simpler and maybe cheaper on at least a CPM basis to plan and activate. If you don't have that local element, you're just not going to get the lift that's out there for you to get if you do it kind of the right way. And scenario budgets beat fixed plans, move money weekly. So that long lead time that sometimes we see with traditional media buys is giving way to more agile kind of investments and reallocations as the campaign executes. And one tool to adopt now, the effective CPM, your shared planning currency. Is that about it, or anything to add to that for takeaways? We'll start with you, Jay.
Yeah, so I think there's two things that I think are really interesting that kind of summarize everything we're talking about. I think you did a great job summarizing it. But as we think, one thing that I consistently hear dealing with hundreds of advertisers is the question really shouldn't be, how much am I spending on print versus digital or billboard versus SEM? It should be more focused on the recipe of media tactics to drive meaningful sales lift. So setting up test versus controls, looking at the customer journey and what factors need to be influenced to get them to purchase you when the need, impulse, economic, life stage decision arrives. And that's really what the focus is here. Everyone can look at zero moment of truth conversion and say, SEM is driving 90% of my sales. But the
Right.
truth is, I don't think any advertiser out there is thinking to themselves that if I dropped every other tactic and just kept SEM, that my business would look the same way today. So it's about the journey and what tactics influence the right meaningful lift to cause that conversion at the end of the day. And then
Right.
the second point I just want to make is I actually listened to Jay Shetty's podcast, and he had Daniel Pink, who's a kind of master authority on influence.
Exactly. Yeah.
And he said something interesting recently that I think everybody could take from, because I certainly did. He said, we're at a critical time where we don't need problem solvers anymore. Chat GPT has become a pretty good problem solver. That in order to be really effective, you need to be a partner that identifies problems before they happen
Mm.
and come up with preemptive strategies to keep your advertisers a step ahead of the competition.
Oh, I love that.
So as we start thinking about how do we support our partners, not only in media, not only with the lowest cost, the effective CPM, all the things we talked about today, it's how do we learn the most about their environment to be able to come to them with ideas that they may have not even thought of themselves, that their competitors are doing, emerging entrants are looking to do, to be able to give them intelligence that they haven't even thought to use from a marketing perspective and help them use it. And I think that's one thing that I'm really trying to coach my teams on is let's be a step ahead and let's be true thought leaders. We're not product salespeople, we're strategy sellers. And we want to be able to really accommodate what's happening in all of our partners' spaces right now.
I think that really reinforces the value that you're speaking to of the single point of contact, because you see client campaigns and you see it planned and executed across multiple platforms, and you've got that learning, within a business category or something may even apply across business categories. So that I don't want to do the Rain Gretzky or overdo it, but yeah, I mean, where things are going to go. Daniel Pink, I love. And I mean, yeah, you need to not solve the problem. You need to anticipate and pre-solve it almost. Yeah, I mean, that's fabulous. So I'm going to ask you each to do a prediction for 2026, but so let me see if you have anything else to add to the notion of summarizing what we've covered so far.
No, I think Jay actually made a really good point. For advertisers, it's going to be important to be agile, plan ahead, and also being able to, as Jay really beautifully said, to anticipate how the market might move and take actions accordingly. And this is also something that BI has played a big role in doing with its data stack. So I know we wanted to talk about predictions as well. And
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, cool. So what we're thinking on that is that by Q4 2026, advertisers that are budgeting weekly against an optimized CPM will beat static plans by double digits return on ad spend, especially in election touched DMAs. So it's important to not just have a plan and just kind of forget about it and leave it be and just let it run solo. It's important to keep track of what's going on in the market. And as we discussed earlier, anticipate what might happen, look at what's going on using near real-time measurements whenever possible, and respond accordingly. And it's also a good time for advertisers to start planning ahead, especially with 2026 being an election year, so that they can get the inventory needed and don't get crowded out or have to rethink their strategy at the last minute.
Right. Yeah, that's really interesting. Okay, Jay, what do you have for us for 2026? What's going to happen?
Yeah, I think that it's already starting, but I think, data was once hoarded, right? People held their data like it was gold. Their CRM systems were untouchable, and we want to keep it really close to the vest. I think, 2026 is going to really be a renaissance year for advertisers opening up their CRM data, APIing with a lot of their partners, letting their data lakes be used to help create market intelligence to optimize the most of their campaigns. And I think media partners are going to now have access to that, but they need to start rethinking the way that they go to market. And they need to be able to use that to drive insights, strategy, dynamic pricing, all things that, using that data is meant to do. The worst thing that we can do is taking data from a partner and then just come back with a canned solution. You need to let the data guide the insights, and the insights need to guide business strategy. And I think that's going to be a really big shift going into next year.
Yep. Okay, well, this is you've got an offer, Jay. I'll just call us out here. See how this works with your data. Valpak will work with you. So if you go to Valpak, valpak.com/BIA, bring a month worth of CRM data, and Jay and his team will map you out a plan. So Jay, thank you so much for being with us here today. Senan, thank you. We appreciate all of your insights, the data, the thoughts that you're sharing, and advice and the predictions. We always appreciate and value your time with us. And again, details about what we're talking about here, this would be available on a recording basis, so you can download and share with people, transcripts and so on. And do check out Valpak, valpak.com/BIA to take advantage of that offer. So go look up that website as soon as you break from here and fill a little survey at the end. Jay, let's definitely connect again in early 2026, and same with you, and we'll see how the predictions are coming along. And to everyone listening and viewing us, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your sharing part of your day with us. If you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to us at podcast@b-i-a.com. And we'll look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations and very interesting people like this in future podcasts. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Jay and Senan. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to the BIA Leading Local Insights podcast. Stay a part of our community by subscribing so you never miss an episode. And we want to hear from you. What topics do you want us to dive into next? Email your ideas to podcast@bia.com.